All right, everyone, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you that are Zooming with us. We have had a little bit of a trial setting this up, but we think it's running well. We thank everybody for coming either in person or in the Zoom meeting. We have a fairly ambitious agenda tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ken Boyce. I'm the president of the club. And we have a speaker tonight, Bill Kaufman, going to talk to us about beeswax to start the program off. Bill is also the newest master beekeeper in the club. He finished the Cornell Cooperative Extension Program and the Cornell University program, and has graduated from that. So thank you, Bill. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And he's going to talk a little bit about beeswax tonight. So if there are questions, you can, I don't know, wait to the end, or Conrad will help us with those and we'll go from there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. So just anytime something comes up or if something comes across there, let me know and maybe I can answer it. So beeswax, I figure this time of year it came down and there was, all the trees were in color. So that says to me, beekeeping season's over, wax rendering. Can I take it off?
I would.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You guys are okay with that? Yeah.
Late now.
Well, he's 6 feet away. So it's so hard.
Oh, that's better. I can breathe.
Thank you.
So yeah, so beeswax rendering season is on. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. And I push the button. There it goes. Sources of beeswax, properties of beeswax, rendering and processing beeswax, and uses of beeswax. So I want to take a vote, at least in here right now. Is there any of those areas that you want to know more about? Because I can talk more about them and speed through the other things. So we got sources. That's going to be quick anyway. Rendering and processing. It'd be a good one. How about uses? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
what do you do with it after you render it process?
yeah, it's a good. I did push the button. There it goes. Let's see where. Who knows where beeswax comes from? It comes from your candle companies. You call them up and they send you little pellets, right? So I'm going to push this button before I think about it. That's the way it goes faster. There we go. There's that fake stuff. Look how pretty that is. So this is where we know beeswax as beekeepers.
You got to slow down because what everybody sees is quite a few seconds after you change the slide.
Yeah, about 10.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, so
Oh,
don't talk too fast because they don't see that yet. They see the previous slide.
We're on that slide now.
Okay. Beeswax, honeycomb. This is what, as beekeepers, we all know where beeswax comes from. Is from the bees make this, and this is what we get. And this is what we're going to end up rendering. This is another source of beeswax, which is very unfortunate. Hopefully nobody here has ever got their beeswax this way by dropping it on the driveway, busting the frames open because it's full of honey and you didn't get it in the extractor.
10-second rule.
Yeah. The main source of beeswax for beekeepers. This is my cappings wax I put in the driveway for all these honeybees here to come out and clean up. This must have been late at night when it got cooler out.
Looks like cereal.
You don't have many beak?
There's one right up there. Yeah, there might be a couple dead ones. I know the European hornets up there, which I haven't seen any of those this year. Has anybody seen European hornets this year? You've seen them. No, I haven't seen any. And last year there was loads of them. But I know the European hornets come in and they pull out all the carcasses that end up dead in the or the ones that kind of like this little bee here where it's old and I don't know if he's going to make it out before the European hornets grab him and take him away. There's another source. Everybody know what this is?
Fumbles.
Bumblebees. They make wax too. You're gonna take a lot. You're gonna have to find a lot of nests to make it so anything out of that. Cutouts. A lot of wax comes from cutouts, mostly because most of it gets recycled and you can't reuse it in a new hive. Old frames. You helped me get those there, Ken.
Oh,
There's a
yeah,
pile of them.
yeah.
Yeah, those were useless.
Oh, that's too bad.
Why? Already useless.
They were so old and dirty and brittle, and there were none of the joints were holding me together. You move them and they just fall apart, and you push them in, and it's just old frames. They must have been in storage for 10 plus years and covered in dirt. It was just real bad. So, properties. So to make beeswax, I'll go through this quick. Beeswax, bees only make wax under certain conditions. One is they've got to have, what do I got here first? Certain age bees. The bees have to be a certain age. Typically, now if they're swarming or they're doing something else and there's a population shift, they can revert back to wax making or whatever job's necessary. But typically 12 to 21 days old, that's after emerging as an adult. The temperature needs to be appropriate, so they can't make wax in the winter. They can't make wax this time of year, mostly because they've got to heat the hive to the temperature they need their brood nest to be. The temperature needs to be in basically the whole hive, away from the brood nest, because a lot of the wax making does not happen around the brood. It happens, in a super or down below or wherever they need more room. There's got to be a nectar flow. If they're not getting resources in, they're not going to want to store more stuff. And yeah, there's more bees being born than dying. But the nectar flow wraps into this here. The bees must be out of room to store anything. They've got to know that they've got more nectar coming in, and they're building up nectar faster than they can process it to honey to make more room for more nectar. So they're just running out of room. They're running out of room for brood. And they've got a desire to make wax. Dave.
So you show us pictures of honey cell being almost 3 inches long.
Yes.
Why do they do that?
A deep cell. Well, you see it a lot around a frame where you've got brood on the frame and then you've got honey in the corners, and they'll extend those cells a little bit more. They make the brood cell only a certain depth because the larvae only grow so big. So that's the depth they need it to maximize space. Honey, on the other hand, they can close that in more up top. They can close it in. And the pictures you've seen are from some cutouts I've done. And those are basically in a corner where instead of building a fresh comb over to the right, they take this left comb and kind of push it in and just keep coming this way. And that maximizes space. That uses less wax and can store more honey. So they'll do it that way, given the opportunity, but they've only make longer or deeper cells to store honey, not brood. Just like they'll use, they'll prefer drone cell comb over worker cell comb when storing honey or making comb to store honey. So this is where the bees make their wax. Right on their hind end, between the segments of their body. It squeezes out like toothpaste. It starts off as a liquid and solidifies as the gases from it evaporate when it hits the air, and you end up with these nice little scales. Oh, there it is. Now this here is a picture of the scales between, I believe that is a mite and a wing. Very small. They start off translucent and they don't turn that white, opaque, waxy color we're familiar with until the bees start chewing on it. I think push the button.
Do the bees pick it off themselves, or is it groomed off by other bees?
Both, but they do, like when they're festooning and they're building wax and they're hanging on, they'll see a piece, grab it off another bee and add it to the comb. So we were talking about this the other night. I did some looking up and trying to figure this out. So if anybody's heard anything different, I don't know, it could be different, but this is what I've found scouring Google. Let's see. A bee can make a set of those scales every 12 hours. So every 24 hours, they make 2 sets. On average, bees make the wax for 9 days out of their life. And, and like, as I said before, that could change based on if they're swarming or their job needs to change. $15,400 scales to make a honeycomb to fit our standard 12-ounce square of honeycomb, to make the wax to hold that honeycomb. That's 190 bees. It's about 1.5 ounces of wax in a 12-ounce square of honeycomb. So a pound of wax takes 9,120 bees, a lifetime of work to produce that much wax. And I wanted to put that in there because we all hear that thing about how many bees it takes to make a pound of honey, and but I never see anything about the wax. And this was interesting. A 1 foot of natural comb with no support can hold over 1,000 times as much weight as the wax weighs. That's incredible strength right there. Oh, this is good. This is important stuff. When you do wax, it can't burn. You can't let it get too hot. Every time you, let's see, what do I got first? Yeah, never heat wax directly. Always put it in water. And I think I'll show a picture of how I do it soon. But, I always put it in water. So I start a water bath getting hot, and I just keep adding wax to it and add wax to it and wax to it, because there's a lot of airspace in that wax comb. It's soft at 120 to 130. And these are this is information you need to know when you're making, if you're whatever you're using the wax for. Typically, candles is the first thing that comes to mind for most people. Wax melts at 147. So you want to bring it up to about the 150 degree range when you're making something, because if you get it too hot, and I don't think I put it in this list, wax expands tremendously when it's hot. And when you're making other things, when it cools off, especially candles, it'll shrink quite a bit, and you'll lose and you'll crack and deform if it's too hot. And if you're making candles or you're rendering wax, you really don't want it to go over 185. It will start to discolor, turn kind of a gray, green, brown color. Water boils at 212. So if your water's boiling, your wax is too hot. And it's explosive at 400. So if you run out of water and it starts to heat the wax itself, and you start seeing gas coming off, stand back. Yeah. Indirectly through water.
What are you supposed to do? Add more water to it? Or just take it off the heat, or?
If you can take it off the heat as quickly as possible,
No.
don't forget your boiling wax. Stay there. I do mine outside.
Don't let the water boil off is what you're saying.
Right. And if you get your pot too hot or too full,
You'll end up with a mess underneath your pot.
that's right, it will boil over. Kind of like spaghetti sauce starts to just, instead of just bubble, it kind of lifts up. That's exactly what wax does. Oh, here's my setup here. So this is my little propane stove I got at a garage sale one time, and a couple pots that I probably got $20 into this setup. About a 20-pound bottle of propane lasts me all summer long. And I do cutouts, and I've probably rendered 100 pounds of wax this way with the same bottle. Is everything good over there?
Yeah, yeah, no.
Okay.
We're just getting rid of those boxes on the side.
Solar wax extractor. There's a
I know, go back up here.
little plan to make one. This is a great way for people with a low amount of comb to build or to render wax with. You put wax on that tray there, some comb, some old frames, and there's a piece of glass covering the top. And sitting in the sun, it'll get hot enough to melt the wax. It melts very slowly, so you can have a nice, a fine filter in there, like paper towels. Paper towels are great for rendering wax. It'll go through, it'll collect all the stuff, but it's got to be in something like this, so it's very slow. If you pour 5 pounds of wax through a paper towel, it's not going to work. You can use that. I use a 5-gallon pail with a paint strainer.
The nylon bag.
Yep. Nylon paint strainer. You get them at the Home Depot or the Lowe's or wherever else. Preferably your small stores, not the big box stores. So this is great. It'll come out beautiful, and then the paper towel you can use for a fire starter. Another way here is this is a crock pot. And this is a great way. You can set your crock pot. A lot of them set them to low, and you got a perfect temperature to melt the wax. It's insulated. So when the wax is melted and you turn it off, it cools off very slowly. And wax has this property of being self-clarifying, kind of like our honey does. When we're extracting honey, we put it in a bottling tank. All the junk falls to the bottom, all the wax floats to the top, and you draw off the middle. Same thing happens with wax. All the junk flows down to the bottom, and all the bee parts float to the top.
Do you put inside of the crock pot with like oil or something so it doesn't stick? That would get in your wax though.
Whatever I'm about to use for wax rendering is decommissioned from any other use.
Yes.
So if you want a crock pot, go to the flea market, go to the rescue mission or whatever, pick one up for $2. They usually work. Sometimes they're cracked. Whatever, it'll work.
No, but I mean inside of the crock pot. Do you
No,
spray it?
because
so
when
that-
it cools off, the wax, as I said, it'll contract and pull away from the sides. Here's a little setup I found a picture of. I've never tried this. I'm sure it'll work. Most ovens you can set to 170, I think, is the lowest temperature, which is, you set it to 180 and it'll be perfect for doing something like this. It'll go slow. You put your wax in there. I can't tell what's in there. Maybe a soup can or something. I don't know. But it looks like it'll work. It looks like a very small oven too, because
Yeah.
that mixing thing right there is
Looks
Not the
it'll help
scale.
Your marriage. Did you say help it? Yeah.
How so?
Not mine. I'll say, where's my beater?
oh, here we go.
Right.
So I'm going to show a video. Let's see if I can come over here and bring it up. And what it is how I render wax. And what I do is you saw,
You have to stop sharing and then start again?
I know, but it's coming down so
I
slow.
know. Sorry.
Is this from YouTube, this video or something?
No. I should have it. Right here. So here's some wax I've done, and how I do it is I melt the wax on that stove that I showed, and then I pour it into, I put a,
Are you have to put share again?
yes,
So hold on for 1 second. The bottom.
down there. And I put a paint strainer bag, a nylon paint strainer bag into a 5-gallon pail. And once my pot of wax is melted, I'll take and I'll pour that pot into the 5-gallon pail inside the strainer.
We're not seeing that
Not,
screen.
not yet, because he hasn't clicked on it.
Quick vote.
We're seeing the camera.
No, he's got the share off. He's got to click the window. There you
There it
go.
goes.
Get rid of it.
You got it.
Okay, like screen.
So you should just see that. And so what I do is I take a couple boards with a hinge and I squeeze this bag, and you can see the little the wire sticking out from the wired wax foundation. Now this is very dirty wax, and I don't have the other picture of when it's finished, but it actually separates and you get a nice chunk of yellow wax out of it. But I used to just get rid of my brood comb because it was so difficult to get the wax out of. I used to melt it, then I'd scoop some stuff off the bottom. There we go, it should be back on. I would scoop some things off the bottom or off the top, and most of the wax that was in there would end up in the garbage pan, and the wax that was left over, it just was not worth trying to render wax from brood comb. But once I figured out the system with squeezing that bag, there is a lot of wax, more than I expected in brood comb. I don't have to throw it out anymore.
Sorry, trying to get rid of those.
Yeah, I tried earlier. Obviously, we can't do it here. We'll figure something out for
Well, you could
next
do
time.
just the view. So when you do is you stop sharing. Can I stop sharing for just a second?
No, that's fine. It'll be all right.
Okay.
Everybody's good here. And everybody on,
That only looks that way on that screen.
yeah, everybody on the internet sees the whole thing.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, we just,
Right.
we just see the speed.
You're just seeing this.
We're seeing the boxes.
They're
whole
seeing the
season.
boxes too.
Yeah, see,
You have to put it.
Yeah, see his
into
screen?
Speaker.
See his screen?
On the
Guys,
phone.
on the
we
phone.
only have the one.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know why? Because yours is set at speaker view.
So we'll see. So anyway, this is some of the wax that comes out of that 5-gallon pail. I let it sit, and what I do is I try to slow, as I said with the crock pot, it's insulated, so it really slows down the cooling. You want to go from 180 degrees to room temperature in the longest span of time possible. And this is what's left over from my 5-gallon pails. I put a piece of insulation on the top, and if it's colder out and the ground is cold, I'll put a piece of insulation board on the bottom too. And it cools off, and it contracts, and it pulls away from the sides, and I can take it right out. There's usually a little layer of junk on the bottom of it. You can kind of see it in this picture here. But you can see how nice that is inside. And the only way I figured out how to cut this wax is a meat cleaver. It works great. Here's some, yeah, you can see this one's upside down there, that disc. And that's what ends up on the bottom. You get a bunch of junk, and you just take your hive tool or a scraper of some kind and scrape it off. This one here, this shows clean wax that is almost white. It's got a lot of dirt in there from what I was doing. It must have been from a cutout. That square on the left. And that's mostly from wax that is brand new, unused wax. These brown, gray, green colors, whatever that may be, that's from burning the wax. That's from overheating. You'll see it go to craft shows, and you'll see a lot of these green beeswax candles. You're like, why isn't it yellow? Because they overheated it. And I did it there. It happens. And then that's what your wax is supposed to look like on the bottom, that nice yellow disc.
So just try not to go over 180 or 170 or what?
174 is the melting point. I mean, you can go up to about 147.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic, thank you.
I I thought it was 7:41.
I get my B's and my P's messed up too, which is kind of weird. But so the second from the bottom, that's dirty wax. That's from comb that has had dirt in it and dust and everything else. And that can be rendered again and filtered again and get that nice yellow wax out of it. Uses for rendered wax. Rendered and cleaned beeswax. That's important because you don't want that brown, dirty junk. First thing that comes to mind, candles. And that's one of them where you asked about the temperature. You want it to be around 147 to keep it from shrinking too fast. You want your room temperature to be as warm as possible to keep that temperature difference as small as possible. If you're putting candles in molds, you want to warm your molds up. And if you've got an insulated box, I took some old styrofoam board and I cut it and made a box that I can put my candle molds in, and then put the lid on so it keeps the heat in as long as possible. The slower wax cools, the better it's going to take the mold. Soaps, balms, and lotions.
Bill, do you use a mold release spray
Yeah, that's what I
in
was.
your candles?
I do. I have. I found it works good either way. I found that if it doesn't come out, put it in the freezer. The freezer will make the wax shrink more than whatever the mold is, if it's silicone or tin or what have you, glass. And it'll pop out that way. But yeah, they do sell mold release. And the other thing is the wick itself. You got to have the appropriate wick for beeswax. If you make a bunch of soy candles and all of a sudden you want to get in the beeswax candles, it's not going to work. You got to have that right wick. So research is required for that to make sure you get the right one, because there's difference for different diameter candles, different thicknesses candles. You might want more than one wick. And I'm sure that's the same for soy, if different size candles. I don't know. I don't know anything about soy candles.
How did you learn about different sizes? Was it trial and error of the wicks, or is there like a?
There's places you can
guide
look
that
up.
you use?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find. I made a few candles, and I tried to enter them into competitions. So I wanted to make sure I was doing it right, and it's easy to find the information. Any other questions about candles? Soaps, balms, and lotions. Basically, what beeswax is used for in these things is as a hardener. I've made soaps in the past, and I've made vegetable oil soaps. Vegetable oil soaps they're very soft. If you leave them wet, they just melt. You got to really have a good soap. You've got to have lard or animal fat. It's going to last longer, work better. Beeswax is a great vegan or I think it's vegan. I don't know. It's not animal fat anyway. Beeswax is great for that, for hardening these things, for making lip balm. I've made that. I've made chapsticks. And I found that if there's not enough beeswax in it, you put it in your pocket and it just kind of melts and gets all gooey and it's no good. If there's too much beeswax, what happens is it gets too hard and it doesn't come apart the way it's supposed to. It doesn't apply the way it's supposed to. So that's along with that is a experimental thing for me anyway. How much oils and different things and the flavors and the tastes and all that. Coating cheeses. Who makes cheeses here? I know somebody that bought my beeswax to coat cheese. They may have goats and they coat their cheese with it, and it is amazing. So everybody should get into it. Cheese making. Lubricating drawers and sliders. I've got a chunk of wax that I keep in my truck. and I keep a piece in. You don't want to keep it in the glove box or up high where the sun's gonna get it. I mean, it's gonna all melt into your dashboard. You got to keep it under the seat in a container so it doesn't melt all over in the sun.
When it does melt, it's contained.
Because the your vehicle will probably make a great solar wax melter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works great though, and it's a classic thing there. I guess they make toilet gaskets out of them too. I don't know if I believe that. Crayons, I saw this. I said that's a great idea. I'd like to try to find a recipe and make them for my kids. I don't know what you would use to do that. I assume maybe you can get it from candle making supplies as the colorants. I've done this. Straight beeswax isn't really great. You kind of add some mineral oil to soften it up, heat it up, and mix it with mineral oils. Grease cookie sheets, that's great. That works awesome. You got to warm it up a little bit and then rub it on there. Cast iron pans. I do this. I keep a candle next to my in the drawer next to the stove. So when the cast iron needs a little extra, I just take the candle out and the beeswax candle and rub it on the pan. The first time I really scraped down my pans and I put them in the oven, did the whole seasoning like thoroughly so it bakes in and cooks into the iron itself. It was about this time of year, and what had ended up happening was all the neighborhood bees came to the screen door. You could smell it through the house, and they just came in. Or came to the door and to the window. What is going on? Then I realized after this was all done, they all disappeared. I'm like, oh, it must have been that cooking wax. This is a popular item now. Everybody's about renew, reuse, the whole thing. Cotton cloth, food wraps, and basically what this is beeswax and other types of oils, pine resin, and it just makes a nice soft sticky cloth. I've got these, and what I like them the best for is cheeses. I have not had a cheese. Cheese will get hard in one of these if you leave it long enough, but I have not had a cheese turn green or mold on me when it's wrapped in one of these beeswax wraps. Cotton beeswax wraps. It's really awesome. Cookies and baking. Now, I haven't heard anything about this. I thought about it a week or so ago, and I said, I got to check into this. And my theory was butter melts at a lower temperature than Crisco. Butter has a better flavor. Crisco has a better, fluffier cookie. And it's the temperature that changes everything. So what I figured is if I melt butter and beeswax together, it'll raise the melting point. The cookies will stay stronger and taller and better and fluffier or whatever. And it works. And I got cookies right there.
With beeswax?
With beeswax. These are beeswax cookies. I found a great ratio. It was about, I think it was 2 sticks of butter to the equivalent of 1 stick of beeswax. I think it could actually use a little less beeswax. I think it would work. But it was awesome. There's other recipes out there. There's a guy that puts fish on a pan and then takes liquid beeswax and pours it over the fish. And then once it's cooled off enough to peel the beeswax away, the fish is cooked. And they say it brings in the flavors of the honey and everything else and whatever else is in the beeswax. Of course, when you're cooking with beeswax, you want your own beeswax. You don't want to be using beeswax that has been used with pesticides or anything like that. So if you're treating for mites, you don't want the stuff you want the stuff from the supers that have not had treatments on it. And if you can avoid it, your pesticides in your neighborhood foraging, you want good beeswax for something like that. You don't want to call your candle company and say, hey, send me some beeswax. I want to make cookies. Be a bad idea.
Bill, we have 2 questions coming in on chat.
What is it?
How long do you render the wax? How many times do you render each batch?
The wax, I don't cook the wax longer than it takes to melt it. So as long as it's melting, as soon as it's done melting, there's no more chunks or anything like that in there. That's when I turn the heat off. And then I think you can render the wax almost as many times as you want, as long as you don't burn it.
You can
I've
draw
to-
it off. If you've got a spigot at the bottom, you can draw it off as it's melting down too. You could take some off whenever you have the opportunity, once it's melted.
Right, if you've got, you can use a bottling tank and use a bottling tank to do it like that. As far as my honey though, or my wax, the way I extract it with the thickness of water underneath, what happens is that water gets taller and taller because it's drawing, the water actually draws the honey out of the wax. And so eventually that level is going to raise up to where the spigot is. So it's, the way I do it, I'm sure if you have just wax and you've already had rendered wax and you're adding it to a clean wax in it, that would work too. I've rendered wax probably a dozen times and it comes out yellow and nice and smelling good. So
My main use for wax is to paint my wax frames, my plastic frames.
right, there you go. That falls under the what else. I forgot about that. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there another question back there?
Do you cover the crock pot when rendering?
I would, especially when you turn it off to keep the heat in. Even once you turn it off and unplug it, you can actually throw a little towel over it or something to keep it warm a little longer. Otherwise, I think that's it for the thing. And I've got a link up there, how to build a solar wax melter. We can't see that here, and who knows who can see what where.
Did you get that from Beeswax?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a YouTube link. Yeah, that's not gonna, can't get the end of that from here. We can look at it after we turn the Zoom thing off, though. I don't know how else to fix that. Otherwise, that's it.
Great. Any other questions, Conrad?
No,
Any questions here?
Bill, on the the wrapping, the wax wrapping, the cloth wrapping, have you made that at all?
I have. Those are pictures of my wraps.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I use beeswax, pine resin, and jojoba oil.
When you say pine resin, could you use propolis?
No, propolis is hard. Pine resin is very sticky, and the stickiness is what makes the thing stick together. When you're putting it over a bowl or something, it'll hold its shape and stick.
Good question.
Oh,
What kind of molds would you recommend for someone getting started and want to make candles and things? Silicone or tin, or what have you found works best?
Just getting started, shot glasses. Yeah, you can get those real cheap. You don't need anything extra, and you can break them, and you don't have to worry about them, and they're great. Anything, candy molds, be great. Stuff you can pick up at the thrifty shopper.
some of those, like silicone and rubber, can be quite pricey.
Yeah, the silicone molds are very expensive, and that's why I said that. Just getting started, you want to practice a little bit on the cheap side before you really invest money, because you're good at what you're doing, you're enjoying it. What else did I have?
Anything else? Any other
That's it.
questions? Okay,
You don't need to zoom in.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you, that was great.
So this comes back under your control.
Okay,
I know we're still on. And you can just zoom however.
okay, we got a few things. Go over a few of the things with the club. In general, I was just wondering, how people's fall flows went. Oh, sorry. How people's fall honey flow went. My experience was I didn't have a great fall flow. I don't know why. It seemed like the goldenrod was like 6 feet, 7 feet tall, but I didn't really have much in the way of that. Asters, fall asters and stuff really came on strong, but I didn't take any of that honey off. So kind of tell me how your experience has been.
I don't know, this is the first year I haven't extracted the fall flow. I took everything ahead of time and let the bees have the fall flow. So I'm hoping that it was well enough to top off what they need.
I did the same thing. I didn't really have what I would consider a real strong goldenrod flow. I did smell it some, but I didn't smell that real strong goldenrod smell this year. My hives are heavy though. I don't think I have to feed anything extra, so I'm kind of hoping for that. But Don, how'd you do? How'd your fall flow go?
I had put supers back on. So what I did is, if the bees have got enough, then I usually I take those frames as feeders, put them in the freezer, and then I'll use those for building up nest next year.
Yeah. Okay,
But I got quite a bit more than I thought I was gonna get.
good, good. David?
I did doing the same thing you are. I had a August extraction and I haven't touched it since.
Yeah.
I'm fine for the winter. I do need to get out and figure out how heavy my hives are.
Okay. Paul, how about you down in the Hudson Valley stuff?
Yeah, so I'm from the Hudson Valley, just moved to Oneida. Just like you guys, I extracted mid-July. Just left one super on top of double deeps, and they're all medium to heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
In September when I left.
Okay.
How many hives you got?
17.
All right.
Conrad, do you have anybody to say anything on the group?
No.
Okay. All right. So where do we go from here? Well, fall prep is around the corner. Some people may have already started. Mouse guards could be going on now pretty good. It's probably a little early to be wrapping, but still keeping in mind, I know everybody has their own ideas about wrapping and winter prep in general. So some do, some don't. I'm not sure it makes a difference one way or the other for winter survival. I think more mite protection and mite treatment has more of a influence on survival than the wrap part. But keep that in mind. Do what you need to do. Ask questions, whatever you need to do, and we'll go from there. All right. Any questions about winter prep as of now? John?
Mite treatment, how long can mine are all treated, but the question on the floor is, how long can I treat and what can I treat with now if you're in the middle of October?
Well, that's a good question. Now, you can do oxalic now. Formic is the temperatures aren't good for formic unless you get a good stretch of 50 to 80 degrees or something like that. And I don't think we can count on that around here. But oxalic dribble, you could do that easy enough. You could probably even use some thymol stuff too, but I don't know exactly how effective that is in lower temperatures. But certainly the oxalic vapor, you can use that up until winter, really. Now that the brood has been pretty much, brood rearing is curtailed for the most part, you can use the oxalic or anything that temperature isn't that temperature dependent is going to be all right. Yeah. Anybody have any experience with vaporization or oxalic? I did the oxalic dribble last year. And not sure, I didn't do any post-treatment testing, but I didn't know how exactly that worked. The bees didn't mind it. I didn't have any problems from the bee standpoint. I'm not sure how effective it was though. And I don't use the vaporizer, so I don't know how that works. But anything else? Any other questions? How many people wrap? Who's going to do some wrapping? Okay. Who leaves them alone? Okay, I've done both, and like I say, it's a toss-up whether it's more effective. I wrap now because I think I have to, but I just use insulation boards for the most part. Okay, good. All right, David.
I bought one of those bee cozies last year and.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, it was sopping wet,
It was what?
sopping wet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, when I took it off, it weighed probably 3 times what it originally weighed when I put it.
How about that? Does that completely enclose the hive?
It just encloses the sides.
Yeah.
It's
Did you have top
open.
ventilation?
Yeah, there's.
Because with that, I think you would really need to have some ventilation at the top, but,
Yeah, but the cozy itself was soaking wet.
how about that?
Yeah.
Well, that can't insulate very well then if it's wet, I wouldn't think.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's good.
I don't have it now.
All right,
I threw it out.
all right.
But I do plan to use the foam board this year.
All right.
But nothing more than that.
Well, this month, we have to talk about elections, nominations for December's voting and officers. Now, we do know that we have some positions coming open for president, secretary. And those are the only two, and one board member position. So I know I'm not going to continue as president. Carol is not continuing as secretary. So those two positions in the club, and Mike Johnston's board membership is up this year too. So we're looking for one board member and those two positions for the club. So we need nominations. This is the month we do nominations, see who's interested. Those people have the opportunity to do whatever town halls or whatever they want to do to gain support. And we do, if there is more than one person, if there is anybody interested in those positions, sometimes we have some trouble filling those positions. But anyway, so president is open, secretary is open. So think about it, nominations tonight. So we can put that on the website and have people aware of it, with elections being done in December. So any questions about that?
Yeah, you said board member. Now, if the president and secretary, they're part of the board, right?
There's 5 board members.
Like if there's a board meeting.
There's
everybody
the
else-
president is part of the board,
Mhm.
and then there's 4 other board members that are not officers, secretary, treasurer, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
When are you doing the nominations?
Pardon?
When are you doing the nominations?
Nominations will be done tonight,
When
if we can do it. We do it right now.
I nominate Billy for president.
Okay. All right.
You want to be secretary?
Yes, sir.
I'll nominate
So-
him.
Nice.
Conrad,
Who wants to be on the board?
I nominate Larry Giglio,
for,
president.
okay. So there's 2 nominations, and nominations, we could have a dozen people be nominated for any position. So, but we're going to have the election in December. Okay, does everybody understand that part? Okay. So is there anybody on the Zoom that has a nomination? And you can nominate yourself too, I assume.
Of course you can.
So we have 2 nominations for president, 1 nomination for secretary.
There is
Chat
one
box,
thing.
past president should be on the board.
Do you, what now?
Very last one, past
Oh,
president.
the past president should be on the board. Yeah, that's true. We could do that. I could do that, I suppose.
Should be a board member.
Yeah,
I like that.
all right.
Full ticket.
Huh?
You got a full ticket.
Well, we've got the positions covered anyway, so that's good.
Better than nobody.
All right, so,
You might be new, but you're not shy. So
Yeah.
you want to speak up.
yeah. So now is the time to be considered for a position. So is there anything else? Right, we know that. Yep, yep. Okay. All right,
Do we get
so
to talk up the nominee?
say that again?
Do we get to talk up the nominee?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, is Larry on?
No.
No, all right, well, Larry, I can talk a little bit about Larry because I know him pretty well. Larry's a longtime Mid-York beekeeper.
Probably the oldest.
He-
Probably
He's,
the
he's very
longest-
likely one of the very oldest, yeah, he's been around forever. He's been a good beekeeper, he's been past president of the club, he's been president before. He, I mean, he's been very responsive whenever I've had to deal with him. I know he's been, when he was doing the president before, that was 3 or 4 presidents ago, 4 presidents ago, I guess. But yeah, he did some things with the state back when they were talking about registration and things like that. Yeah. So that's what I know about Larry. Maybe there's some other people who have better standing with him. I don't, you know, he lives so far away from me that I don't see him on a regular basis at all, other than here at the meetings. But that's just knowing him for 25 years I have.
Do you write up about your nominations on your website and then people can see that when they vote on December?
Well, we would do the voting here like on a open election thing. You know, usually we just pass around a hat with the names on it and then tally it at the end of the night type thing. So if we're doing, and I assume we probably will, this combined Zoom in-person meeting, I don't know, I guess we do the same thing or whatever, and go from there. I guess for secretary,
Can people
it's,
vote via Zoom?
what?
Can people vote via Zoom, or do they have to be in this room?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think, no, that we've got to be able to, I think that if people are doing it by Zoom, they have their reason to do it by Zoom. And I think we need to respect whatever their reason is. And their vote will be counted by a show of hands, by a show of whatever. I think that you can vote by Zoom. You have to be able to. So we wouldn't jeopardize anybody's reason for not being here because of a vote.
There's a polling mechanism on Zoom.
Is there?
So you could you could make a poll and
Yeah.
everybody can vote.
Well, we could even have, you know, if you've got everybody lined up at the bottom of your Zoom page and say, okay, who wants Ken Boyce for president? Everybody holds up their hand or they hold their hand down and you just count what you got. So I don't think it'd be hard no matter how we did it.
No, it's easy. You
So-
can raise your hand on the Zoom thing.
Yeah,
Little place you click. Raise your
Okay.
hand.
all right. So that's not going to be an issue. So the only thing we need to do is we need to have people vote, whether by in-person or Zoom, we have to do it. Now, I don't know, because I'm not sure many people know Bill. I'm not sure many people know
Right.
anybody. So I don't know how to get that message other than those individuals getting some little, you know, a biography or whatever together and putting it on the website.
Send it to Carol and then have it out.
All right.
I would suggest that the candidates be present at the meeting, one way or the other, and give a candidate statement.
Yeah, we could do that. That'd be fine too. Yeah,
Because it really doesn't matter that we know who it is in advance. It's not that we have to make up our mind over 2 months.
right.
The guy could talk to you, and the guy that you decide is the best guy at that point, you vote for
Yeah.
right there.
I think the importance of tonight is to make sure that we have the positions covered. Because you don't want to go into December saying, oh boy, you know what? We don't have anybody that wants the position. So I'm really glad to see that we have candidates that are going to do it, are willing to do it. Yeah, so it's, everybody should do it at least once to see what it's like and to have fun with it. And well, you know what? The biggest thing for me was sharing some of my ideas and things that I thought were important to the club. And everybody has their own ideas of what's important to the club. But as president, you have a little bit more influence, maybe a little bit more say. So really, maybe that's narcissistic or whatever you want to call it, but, you know, if you see a need for change, be an officer. There you go.
Well, the reason why I nominated Billy, and I thought about it a lot the last couple of weeks, is one, is getting his master, you know, beekeeper accreditation is a big part of it.
Yeah.
There's only a couple people in the whole club that have that. The second thing is we don't know how long the Zoom hybrid crap meeting's gonna go on. And there's a guy that's been doing it almost every month on his own. He doesn't have a problem getting up in front of the TV and doing these kind of presentations.
Mhm.
And if we have to do this for another year, you know, who better than the guy that's already, you don't have to reinvent it, he's already been doing it.
Mhm.
So that was one of the reasons I thought a lot about Bill, not because of his vast years' experience or anything like that, but he's definitely got the qualifications from the beekeeping side. And right now, I don't know anybody that's got more experience at doing this Zoom teaching meeting process than he does.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why I nominated, you know, Bill for it.
I don't know how many club members participate in your online stuff, but certainly you've been doing it for a long time. So that's been good.
Since March.
Yeah. So, yeah, take all of that into consideration. The thing that I look for is commitment to the club, commitment to beekeeping, and willingness to do what needs to be done. Those are the things that I would look for in a candidate. So December, when we have our meeting and have those candidates talk about themselves, that would be good. So any other questions about elections, nominations? If someone ends tonight and tomorrow says, you know what, I think I'd like to run for an office, that's okay too. Get a hold of me, get a hold of John. We'll work it out. We'll put you on the slate for December. Remember, we don't have a November meeting. So December is the next time we get together. Okay? Yeah, Conrad.
Carol asks, are there any bylaw changes, additions, or updates?
Well, this year threw us for a tizzy. We had just completed the bylaws before Corona hit. Anyway, ideally, we had a 5-member nominating committee that would have picked people for nominations that we presented tonight. But because of Zoom and everything else, there was no way, A, to get the committee to form, B, to know who was available to run, if they were interested in running, and C, to get it all put together to present tonight. So we did it the old way. That was my decision, so I'll take the heat for that. But I didn't follow the bylaws just because there was no way we could get it done the way we wanted to. So that's on me. Any other questions? Okay.
I've got one.
Yep. Okay.
Most of the communication through Mid-York comes through Yahoo groups. And I always thought that was a bad idea, and I wanted to push people to get away from it. Well, this week I received an email from Yahoo group saying, you know, it's from Yahoo. Yahoo will no longer have Yahoo groups. So that form of communication is going down. A lot of the different things that have come across, things for sale, swarms, different stuff that's happened over this year and previous years, always comes through an email server from Yahoo groups. So there's got to be a way to get everybody off of that and into some kind of an email list or something.
That's a good topic for January.
It ends December 12th is when that's when they're up.
When does it end?
I think it said December 12th. It's this year it ends. So
Okay.
in January we'll miss it. But so if somebody has access to that Yahoo group, something should be sent out to say, hey, if you want to stay on our mailing list, go over to this spot.
Is Dwayne on, Conrad?
No.
All right. Well, Dwayne's the one that kind of put the Yahoo group together. So maybe we could email him. I don't know if he's the one that's sending out the message or whatever. to you. I mean, I'm not on the Yahoo group, so I don't know. But, I mean, maybe it would be better to have a different forum. We're going to have a different forum to, whether it be a link on our webpage that we can talk about it, or a Facebook, or, you know, something else, club group or something. I don't know. I'm not that into, you know, tech and that kind of stuff. So that's something to talk about at one of our other meetings. But since Yahoo is, I don't know how many people use Yahoo anyway, to tell you the truth.
It used to be everybody.
I'm not sure it would be a big deal if we didn't have Yahoo,
Somebody's writing a message.
you know? Somebody sending something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, there already is a Facebook group, but who's,
Yeah.
I don't know who's in charge.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Facebook page seems to be, and I don't know anything about this stuff, but that might be a logical alternative. Talk about that too. All right. The other thing I have to talk about tonight, before we ended up with general questions or general comments, the AFB program, the, you know, the Ag and Markets back, actually, we took the training in August of last year with the AFB, for all of you, is American foul brood, which is an infectious brood disease that's important to beekeepers. I assume you all know what I'm talking about, so I'm just going to go over that. Anyway, the program had a $2,000 grant attached to it that the club could get if they completed the commitment. The commitment was 3 individuals would go to training, get trained on AFB detection, come back to the club and their areas and do a minimum of 20 inspections, and to do a club presentation, and then to submit an expense account, how they were going to utilize the $2,000 grant. Seemed reasonable. So off we went. The 3 people that were inspectors, trained inspectors, were myself, Bob Faulkner, and Jen Bittner. So off we went, then COVID hit. You know, we didn't do much after August, but had plans to ramp it up with inspections. But then COVID hit and things were thrown all in a tizzy. Kind of worked through it. The grant was set to expire the end of August. But Joan Mahoney from Ag and Markets, who is now the New York State apiarist, she allowed us to extend that to end of September. And I've been dealing with her on this since August, going back and forth, trying to get, if anybody's dealt with the state, even though they sounds good, it's never as good, it's never as easy as they make it out to be. You've always got to jump through hoops, and Joan has tried to make it as easy as she could, but she kind of adds things as we go along. So we had those 20 inspections we had to do. I did 15. We had to do the presentation to the club. Well, how do you do the presentation to the club in the middle of a pandemic? So I didn't know how it was going to work. So what I did, here again, I'm taking the fall for this. I just did a presentation on AFB. Had my wife videotape it with my phone. John helped edit it, and we put it on the website. It's not, I mean, I'm embarrassed to see it, but it served its purpose in fulfilling that part of the commitment. So that was good. And when I put it on the expense, I just said, Cornell Master Beekeeper presentation. And Joan didn't ask what it was all entailed. So, but you have to put prices on all of that, and you have to spend that $2,000. Well, then the kicker, when we got to the inspections, despite emails, text messages, and phone calls, I can't get Bob or Jen to respond to me in any form. I did talk to Bob on the phone once, just 2 weeks ago, And he assured me that he would get me the information in 4 days, 5 days. Still haven't heard anything. Jen didn't return calls, didn't return emails, didn't return text messages. So I hate to think we're going to lose this $2,000 just for lack of 5 inspections, but it's a possibility. So that's where we are with that. Anybody has any influence with those two? Encourage them to send me their information and Joan's waiting for it. I'm waiting to do it. I've got my part in. It's just a matter of getting that last little piece. And I don't understand the reason for no help with that, but that's what it is. So that's where we are. We've still got a little bit of a window to do it. I've been holding Joan off before I said we can't do it. So
you said you need report for 5 more inspections?
I would like to have 15 more, but 5 is, 5 shouldn't be anything really. They should have done at least 5 apiece.
Right.
So.
I'll go knock on his door.
Huh?
Can you do 5 more?
It's late in the year to be getting into hives and doing inspections for AFB when you're going through brood. There's no brood to inspect.
Can Carol send out a certified letter to them?
If they're not responding to emails, texts, and phone
They have to
calls.
sign for that.
I know where Bob lives. I'll go knock on his door.
I told him, you're doing cutouts. You're looking at brood every cutout you do. You do, I don't know how many, 10, 20, 50 cutouts a day or a year. Give me the cutout information. I need addresses of the cutout. Addresses and mileage is all I need to complete this. That's all I need to send that information in. That's all I need. And I explained that to them many, many times and I still haven't got it. So I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know. We'll see what happens over the next week or two and we'll go from there. But I'm a little disappointed in that. Well, a little bit is an understatement.
It's only 2
I'd hate to
grand.
lose that $2,000 just because of this nonsense, but that's the way it is. Anyway, that's all I have for agenda items. We're still, hopefully, we talked about last year that field training program, and that certainly went by the wayside because of the pandemic. And cooperative extension shed purchase, who knows where that's going to be. And that was part of our plan to do that. Maybe we can resurrect that come this next year. Maybe cooperative extension will be able in a position to help us with that too. I don't know. But Bonnie, have any idea about that? Too early to tell?
Putting money in for something?
Yeah. Well,
I can't even get stuff for my sale.
yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I would hate to drop that program because I think it's exactly what the club should be doing. And I think that new beekeepers, we showed the interest. We had the people lined up to do it. We had the people that committed to do it, both the instruction and the participants, the new beekeepers. So I think if we can resurrect that for next year, I think that'd be a great program to have. So let's see how that turns out. Who knows?
I'm thinking, I have programs sometimes and I go after foundations, because I know what you're saying about New York State. I'm dealing with that right now. But sometimes there's foundations that just say, okay, we're going to get the money. And that I could do through CCE, saying that one of the educators, myself or somebody else, is helping with the program.
Yeah.
So then we can give money. You got to give me.
Well,
more
I mean,
details,
if there was a way to blend our
well, yeah, and any
not-for-profit statuses and
Correct.
do that as an outside entity,
Yeah.
then
So I need
yeah.
to know more about the project and how much you're looking for and all that, so we can talk about that.
Well, really, we had it, our portion of it was set, allocated. What we needed was the shed.
How
So
much
if you
is the
could come
shed?
up with money for the shed, and we contribute with that too. So that's what we needed.
you how much.
And
the
your
shed
director had the shed all in mind.
Yeah.
We had all the parameters made out.
was. All right, I'll
They
talk
were
to your
submitting,
guy.
they were looking for bids.
Okay.
So I think that we still don't give up on that program, whatever.
No, I agree with you, but.
I
we
think
gotta
it's good.
figure
I
out
think
how
it's
to
good.
How to get it, but I'm finding the foundations are a lot easier. I mean, I
Yeah.
just got a check for
Yeah.
$5,000 with no, really, just told my story.
Yeah.
And they wrote the check. So
Okay. All
There's
right.
ways to do it.
All right. That's all I had for agenda items. And I guess I'll open it up for questions. John?
I'd like to thank Bonnie Collins for helping us every month since the pandemic with the Zoom. She's got knowledge. She's been doing it, what, 6 years? Doing it, so it helped the club out.
Bonnie, thank you.
You're one of them.
Yeah.
You're one of them. That's my job. too, so.
Yeah, but I mean, that's your job, but it's above and beyond too.
No
So we
problem.
really appreciate that. I mean, all the people at Cooperative Extension have really been very helpful in not just this last year, but every year.
Well, even tonight, she left and she came back to make sure
Right.
it went smooth, so
Right.
Now,
appreciate
learn how to
it.
get out those Hollywood squares though. I'm gonna talk to IT tomorrow.
So Bonnie's been above and beyond what we would expect from her. So thank you, Bonnie.
You are
Thank you.
more than welcome.
Any other questions? Conrad, you got or questions from the,
Some chats are coming in on.
There they go.
okay, okay.
I'm looking forward to the donut holes coming back.
Well, that's another question.
I can make that happen.
How are we gonna do the spring beekeeping, the beginner beekeeper course, the advanced beekeeper course? What format are they gonna take? Finger Lakes does it online. That has its pluses and minuses, but it really face-to-face and in an interactive group is the best way to do it. But we'll take what we can get. We'll see what happens come March and April, where we are with that. Anything else to talk about?
Question on the board.
How many are in attendance? David says 11. That's counting officers, right?
No, that's just counting everybody in the room.
David's right. You got a sign sheet.
Okay.
It says employees.
And there's 13 on Zoom. That's good. Okay. Yeah, we'll take it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the Zoom people and all the people that are sitting here. So keep safe, wear your mask, do what you need to do, and we'll see you in December. Thank you.
Thank you.